Welcome, everybody, to the Married to Gaming podcast. I am your host, Adam Puckey, and my very special guest today is none other than the fab, tip-top Twitch streamer, SlackJeff. SlackJeff, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing very, very well. Actually, I've not been referred to as fab in a while, which I'm really, really hyped about. It's got me even more excited than I thought I was going to be. Thank you very much. I'm doing very well. Thank you.
I grab for adjectives and they just appear in my hand. What can I say?
Yeah, it's nice. I like it. Yeah.
So before we get started with the actual podcast, let's talk a little bit about you. I am familiar with your stream. I've been jumping on it the last couple of weeks, getting in there and watching you play Sekiro Shadows Die Twice.
Yeah, that's
more than twice.
That's been a thing.
So you're a streamer. How long have you been doing it, and what was the process for you? When did you start?
So I've been streaming for about 2 years, or just over, like two years and maybe a couple of months, if we're going to be exact. And it's something I've always wanted to do. I just never had. I've never really had a great PC, not one that I would be happy to do gaming and streaming on, or like as a single PC.
Yeah.
Until recently. So really only within the last 3 years have I had that. And I've always wanted to do streaming, but I never really had the confidence to kick it off. And effectively the reason I did it is because somebody said, you have to do it. Like, you're so easy to talk to, you're very outgoing, you love gaming. There's literally no reason why you shouldn't do it, and like talked me into it effectively. And so I tried. I went in full force with the cam and all the rest of it, and just started like video logging my gaming effectively.
Okay.
And started that way. But honestly, it's one of those things. The more you do it, the more I fell in love with it, and the more I just had to keep going and improving and getting better. And it just became a thing where I just tried to build and build and build on it.
I do think, actually, talking to various streamers and stuff while doing this, we are living in the time where our generation are able to do the thing they were possibly born to do. The technology didn't exist before. And obviously the communities online and the access and all of that stuff is all there. It's all converged. It's there for us to kind of jump in and do it. Was there a particular moment where you made the decision, okay, I'm just going to do it now? When you said someone talked you into it, was it pervasive? Did you kind of keep thinking about it and then just go, okay, I'm going to start? Or did you have like this eureka moment?
No, well, it was something I always wanted to do. So that was always in my head. Like, I'd love to do it, but I don't think I'm good enough, really.
Ah, okay.
And then after hearing those words, it was like, I guess because I'm a bit older now as well, and I've kind of gone through my life working menial jobs really through the whole life, and I've got to this point literally coasting, I think, to be honest. This is the first time I've ever done something and put my whole heart and soul into it, and it felt like this is the time, this is the moment where I try to make the life that I want. And that was like the spurring on, really. It was just like, right, I'm finding happiness just chasing a dream, Wow. That's what it is, really.
I mean, having been on your streams, I have seen and spoken to your community, and I've gone into your Discord server as well and hung out in there a little bit, and they are so nice.
Nice bunch, right?
Yeah, you've got this little corner of the internet that belongs to you with these people that are just seem to really like you, first of all, but also they just seem to embrace silliness and really be around for each other, like the way they talk to each other. I'm in various Discord servers, and from what I've seen, the way they talk to each other is really what's the word, like encouraging, supportive, welcoming. They were welcoming to me when I joined, and they didn't know who I was or anything. Whereas I've been in others where a lot of the conversation can be quite challenging each other and calling each other out. And stuff. So it's a really positive kind of space you've made for yourself, and I really think you're onto something.
I'm super proud of it.
Now, I'm setting my timer. For those of you who are listening, not watching, I have a little a little time, which I'm holding up to the camera now. And we are going to use that to go through your married to gaming choices. Now, Jeff,
Okay.
have you told me what these are in advance?
Oh, no, I have not discussed it with you in the slightest.
Okay, good. So I don't know what's coming up, and there's a strong possibility because you play a lot of Souls-likes and stuff that I'm not going to have heard of any of them.
I don't know. It's quite varied. It's quite varied.
Oh, that's reassuring.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're going to go through the sort of traditional marriage stuff. We'll do something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue, and then, of course, my super secret extra special category that no one knows about at the end. So, what is your something old?
Right. My something old. So I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about what I could do for something old, and like so many things came to mind, and I was trying to narrow it down as something that I originally started playing that kind of was like my entry into gaming, or should I go into something that really, really made me fall in love with gaming? And that's kind of where I ended up at.
Okay.
So I guess my something old is going to be the first game that truly made me believe and know that I loved games and I want to play games as part of my life, as part of my entertainment. And that was Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time on the N64.
Whoa! Ace choice.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of people's favorites, I feel, because it's such a defining game. It was for so many people, but I can't not say it because it was that big a deal. I guess I was about 17 when it released, I think. So probably around about 97, I think it would have come out. If I had to guess, I'm not 100% on that.
I was 17
but yeah,
when it came out, and because it was just before Christmas of that year, I think. It was November,
yeah,
if I seem to remember. And yeah, I was 17 or just turned 18 possibly, and or maybe 16 to 17. I can't remember, but yeah, it was around that time.
Absolute mind-blowing game. I remember being at work as well. I was like in my first job.
Okay.
And just staying up till 3-4 o'clock in the morning, just addicted to it, and then getting up and doing breakfast shift at like 6 a.m. And just having like a couple of hours sleep and being completely addicted to it. But at that age, there was no issue. Like, I could get by on a couple hours of sleep. I can't do it now.
Yeah, totally.
But what a game.
Have you got any standout moments from Ocarina of Time that you still think about now and maybe compare modern games to or anything like that?
Just how brilliantly and genius it was made, I think, to be honest, especially because it was where things were really turning into like a 3D game,
Yeah.
But some of the boss designs and how you had like every single thing had this, every single boss, every single temple, every single area had a whole new learning curve to it. And I don't think anybody else had done it quite so well at the time. So you would go to a new area, you would find a new weapon or a gadget or a thing. And then that thing would be used to create a whole bunch of puzzles in that one area. And then you get to the boss fight, and then those puzzles would be adapted into the boss fight. I just thought it was genius. The world was amazing. Exploring it, I explored every inch, trying to find all the little heart containers. Just loved it.
So my funny, embarrassing moment with that one, funnily enough, not having a guide either, not having the internet at all. I was at college at the time, so we did have access to the internet, but the idea of looking up gaming stuff didn't even occur to me too much. In fact, I made my own website where I published guides to games.
Yes. Yeah.
And it wasn't until I did that myself I was like, oh, maybe someone else has done this, and I found a Final Fantasy VII one
Cool.
that needed. But anyway, because I skipped over the tutorial in Ocarina of Time, the first boss, and then the one that's got like the bongos that make
yeah.
Well, I didn't know you could do Z targeting, so I was doing all of the archery.
Oh wow!
With the
that would have been so difficult.
Just that first boss, the sort of spider with the giant eye that comes down.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah. Not me neither.
If you are listening to this and you know the name, please find a way to let us know, because we have nothing in front of us. We've got no reference or anything like that, so we're just going from memory. Well, I did that with the first person targeting, and then that one with the bongos where you need the hover boots or whatever. I think I got to it. I didn't put the hover boots on, so I was just being smashed around the place trying to aim. Right. Frustrated, and I was like, oh. And
I can imagine.
Go to school and talk to my friends and be like, I don't know how to do this fucking thing. But yeah, it was amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I believe they did bring, like, there was eventually, I think, or around that time, they had these like manuals that would come out into your local game store, which you could buy and read like through the manual on how, I think they might have come a few years after the game. But I remember the manuals but there was no way to look anything up. But so it was so joyous. I think it's so brilliant when you had that eureka moment where you put two and two together and you learn it for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of lost in gaming a lot now. A lot of people just look up strats and stuff, but back then there was a real joy to that, like figuring it out and going, wow, what a brilliant, like, you had to put those two and twos together and figure those things out was just part of the joy.
I think now, talking about having an item like the hookshot or the hollow boots that I mentioned or whatever, the different costumes in Zelda, so many games do that now, but I feel like gaming communities, especially the ones we are moving in with the streamers and the YouTubers and all that stuff, are so in contact with developers and in touch through journalism and stuff with how games are constructed and some of the terminology of game design. Things like things like scaling, just the word scaling, and like, oh, your power scales up through the game. When I was a kid, I'm the same age as you, I think. When I was a kid, you had none of that. There was no discourse with developers. There was no internet discussion between fans talking about the way games were constructed. The lexicon of the way we now talk about game design was not there. You just thought, oh, it's this magic thing that's come out of nowhere. You don't consider there's a term they use in writing, the text as a conscious construct. Like, you don't consider the people that made it. You're just like a dumb kid in front of the TV screen going, oh my god, and it's just come out of nowhere for you. And maybe I had an image of Shigeru Miyamoto in my head floating around when I played those games. Maybe him standing over Nintendo, just like willing things into existence. But and I think now, you'll hear in a lot of retro gaming podcasts and stuff, like, people talking about, oh, the magic is lost, blah, blah, blah. The magic was the fact you didn't have to get up and fucking do anything. So you could be immersed in these worlds. There were hardly any games and all that stuff. There's still magic. I still enjoy modern games, probably more. Actually,
totally.
But it's just very different, I think, is the take of it, isn't it?
I think there's some new pillars in game design that weren't there back in the day, or back in the day of Ocarina of Time, for sure. Whereas now a lot of especially in a lot of games which are either cheaper or free to play, there are a lot of how can we put some sort of monetization into it, where with regards to skins or ways to slow down the game or to make it harder, so then you sort of pay for they put problems in the game so you'll pay to go around them. Whereas back then it was never a thought. It was purely about how do we make the best possible game, and that was the only thing that went into the design of it.
Funnily enough, me and Sam were talking about this very thing yesterday night. What were we playing? We were watching something on TV. I think we were watching Godzilla, so I don't know how the conversation came up about how, yours and my generation are kind of the equivalent of people who were making and working on and commenting on movies in like the 30s. We are the front end, or maybe people a bit older than us perhaps, are the front end of people who played games as a kid. The generations well above us are maybe less interested in them or perceive them differently. By the time we're old and in our 70s, the entire planet, absolutely everyone, will know and love video games in whatever form they're taking. And we, as ubiquitous and as artistically regarded as film. And I think Ocarina of Time is one of those kind of linchpin games where they took that 2D 100%. Game and they turned it to 3D, made it this huge story with no voice acting, which is pretty good. And that kind of paved the way for a lot of other games to go, okay, we can do this. And then, especially RPGs, how many RPGs maybe wouldn't exist without that game, I am going to move us on to your next choice, which is something new.
Sure. So my something new, well, here we go. This was between two, but I can't give it to Baldur's Gate 3 because it's won all the game awards, all right? It's too friggin' popular. It's an amazing game. I love it, but everyone knows it's amazing. So I wanted to shine light on something a little less popular, but I think almost just as good. It's actually a complete sleeper hit for me because it. If I give you a background, this very, I'd say fairly small Korean studio called NeoWiz. I think their only previous game they'd made was a free-to-play port of a game called Bless Online. Now, I bought Bless Online back when it released a few years back. I think it was about 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was an absolute, it was like a terrible MMO. It's still to this day the only game I've had refunded on Steam because it just wasn't any good.
Okay.
And they did a port of that game, turning it into a free-to-play game called Bless Unleashed. So they just redid it. And I mean, for one thing, it was free to play, so it had a lot of annoying mechanics in it. But they had changed it from being it's one of the weird examples of when a game became less grindy when it was made free to play.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely
it's bizarre. Anyway, fast forward to this year, they release a game called Lies of P, which is their first go at a proper game from the ground up, just from them. And oh my god, what a gem of a game. A Souls-like game based on a twisted version of Pinocchio, set in like a Victorian steampunk era. It's just brilliant. Absolutely genius in so many regards. It's probably my favorite FromSoft game that isn't made by FromSoft. You know what I mean? It's just so good. It's like a Souls-like that I never knew was going to be good. I thought it was going to be an average game, and it turned out to be an absolute gem. So that's my something new.
What a great choice. So I haven't played it. How long did you spend on the final boss of that game on stream?
On stream about 3 hours, I think. Okay. About 3 hours. Just trying to beat the final boss, because they give you the option. He's definitely in my opinion, the hardest boss in the game, and they give you the option to skip it. So you can literally just go to the Stargaze thing and say, look, I give up, I give it my heart, and skip the boss. But my pig-headed stubbornness on the last minute of the stream, with 0 health left and no heals, I got the final hit on him and took him down in phase 2. But oh, what a joyous feeling that was. I think all backed up by just how tight the gameplay is, because just don't expect it to be that freaking good. It's just such an exhilarating feeling when you've blocked every single move of an attack chain and managed to pull off the perfect counter or something like that. Just honestly, just an amazing achievement for them.
Yeah, I think it's really good as well that you know who made it and you're kind of championing them in a way to kind of stand up for them.
It's the trial of it. Absolutely, the feeling of euphoria when you figure it. Because I'm a big believer in not looking up guides on these. I try. We spend a lot of time in my chat trying to make sure no one spoils bosses, no one spoils tactics, no one spoils. So when you watch it, it is my kind of thought process and the way I'm trying to figure out what's the best thing to do to try and figure out the way through it. But yeah, when it all comes together, when that perfect run comes in, or not perfect, or the one that you just managed to get through,
yes,
the feeling from it is there's no other, unless you like winning a battle royale. I guess like winning a battle royale is something similar, because you've fought through something incredibly difficult and done it. That euphoria feeling's got to be very similar to beating a really difficult Souls-like boss. It's just there's not too many things in gaming that gives you that kind of buzz. The fun thing about Souls-likes is that first playthrough is actually very hard, and usually the new game plus is actually quite a chill experience, or can be, because you've learnt a lot of things along the way, and you know how to do the fights, and then it becomes a very different game. It becomes like a Farmville or something, you know what I mean? It's like a total chill game where you're just playing through it, enjoying the process. You know all the moves. You're gonna put it together in 1 or 2 runs and do it. It's completely different from the stress-filled hell you went through the first time. And I love that about it. I love how a game can turn from this incredibly edgy, crazy thing into this just a joy to play, no-brainer. You know, like you've done your thing. You've mastered the skills, and now you're just, you're chopping through it fairly easily, which I love. I just love that.
And it's that phenomenon is kind of like a homecoming, that feeling of having gone away on a journey like Odysseus,
Yeah.
done all the
Yeah.
things, leveled up like crazy, and then you come back to the level 1 minions, like you come back to your hometown
Yeah.
or whatever, and they're all doing the same thing, they're all in the same pub doing whatever, and you've had these huge experiences. And in gaming, it's the same thing, that stroll through the New Game Plus with all the skills that you earned. You didn't just learn them, you earned them, you grafted.
Totally earned it. Yeah.
We're going to move on to the next category now. I have to list them off in my head because I'm too dumb. Something borrowed. How have you interpreted something borrowed?
A literal game I borrowed.
Okay, yeah. No, that's good. That's good.
I had the PS4 for the longest time. I know I play mostly PC games now, but I had a PS4 for the longest time. And for whatever reason, I never got around to playing Spider-Man. I just never got around to getting it. And I was talking with a colleague in work that, you know, someone I hardly really knew that like that. I won't give a name or anything, but we were just chatting away, and she said, "Oh, my son's just finished that Spider-Man game." I was like, "Oh yeah, I really wanted to try that." And she was like, "Oh well, you can borrow it." I was like, "Really? Well, that's the first time we've ever spoken. You're going to lend me a game?" But she did. She just brought it in the very next day. There it was. She was like, "Here, enjoy." And I felt very not pressured to play it, but very like, I better play it, give it back to her as soon as possible so they're not without their game.
Yeah.
So I literally sat down and focused that game from start to finish, 100%ed it. I nearly platinumed it. I was like I think 2 achievements off platinuming it.
Okay.
It's quite an easy game to platinum, mind you. So I'm pretty sure most people out there will know the first Spider-Man. I think even the second Spider-Man is a very easy to platinum game, especially if you just run around and do. It's got a lot of map markers, very Ubisoft-esque, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Where you just go around, you go to the map markers, you do the things. And I just had a great time running around. I mean, I was glad it ended when it ended because some of the side activities were very repetitive. But what a lovely what a lovely thing to do for someone you don't really know, lending me Spider-Man, and I really enjoyed the experience. It was a great game. Insomniac smashed it.
Was there anything in particular about that game that stood out that you felt made it special compared to the things that were out at the time?
Yeah, so 100%, they nailed the story and the feeling of being Spider-Man. I mean, the combat was great and stuff. Don't get me wrong; it was really fun. It felt very Arkham, you know, like the Gotham ones. It felt very like that, where you were reacting all the time in the combat, which was fun and great. But the feeling of just swinging around the cities as Spider-Man was, I didn't fast travel anywhere. I never wanted to fast travel. All I wanted to do was swing around building to building, trying to get the perfect run. Getting between like little buildings, doing cool little skill flicks and stuff. Honestly, it was just a joy to traverse the game. And when you're running around to loads of map markers and stuff, the fact that they know that they've got this amazing traversal mechanic in the game, it just made it lovely. I truly thought it was a lovely game.
The traversal mechanic, I think, is kind of what it hung off of, actually, isn't it? That's
very much.
Forgive the pun, hung off of. I feel like, so for me, whenever a Spider-Man game comes out, I'm brought back to the late 90s when I lived in a shared house with my friend Rob and a couple of other guys, and we all worked like, we were either at college or did like rubbish jobs. One guy was a drummer. Like, that was the kind of house it was. And we used to drive around in the car late at night, blasting out like Faith No More and Mr. Bungle.
Oh, nice.
We were some cool guys, you know.
I've been there.
But our game, I know, for anyone below the age of 30 listening to it, what's Mr. Bungle?
What? Yeah. What is it?
So the games that we played were, apart from the RTSs and stuff I had, the games we played together were like Tony Hawk's and the first Spider-Man on PS1.
Yeah,
the first
great game.
Which was also a very playable game. But in Tony Hawk's, one of the unlockable characters was Spider-Man. And for anyone who listens to this who doesn't know what Tony Hawk's Pro Skater is, it's a skating game that was very arcadey, where you could pull off ridiculous tricks and land ridiculous tricks with not a lot of air and stuff. Cool soundtrack, and then you could be Spider-Man in it, and you could do these like luges and stuff. And my vision of in-game Spider-Man ever since then has been like the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater model of movement, which is extremely fluid, and like with the combat, like the Batman Arkham games, where each movement, if you're quick enough and you time it enough, you move fluidly into the next movement,
Yeah.
the next trick, and the next trick. And that's part of the beauty of the modern Spider-Man games is that they get that fluid. I want to call it like a frame change, changing from one pose, one set frame to another fluidly, to the point where you don't see it mostly.
No, totally. Yeah, yeah.
Is the achievement, isn't it, with that game?
It is literally the beginning of Spider-Man and him coming to sort of learn his powers. If you think of it, they kind of, as far as I'm aware, they're trying to make a trilogy very similar into the way sort of the Avengers movies were, where you have the sort of coming together, the Infinity War kind of thing, and then Endgame. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
They're trying to make that in Spider-Man. So if you imagine it's the very beginning one where he's just sort of coming together, getting all of his, learning all of his skills, and it's very origin story. It's really, really very good. Very good version of him, and very well acted. The story comes together brilliantly.
What is it? We are how many days from Christmas? 2 weeks from Christmas, and there is a PS5 on the way. I know because in this case, Father Christmas consulted me before supplying it. So, yeah, it's I might just wait for the PS5 version. All right, thank you very much. That's a cool choice.
Welcome.
I love the fact it's literally something you borrowed and not like a conceptual. Oh, this is my soul, because no, I borrowed it, played it, gave it back.
Yeah, as quickly as possible. I smashed it out, I think, within about 4 days, which was just it was a blast play.
Was this pre-stream life or?
Yeah, definitely.
Those are your first three. Your fourth one, then, something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. How have you interpreted something blue?
I was doing this in multiple ways.
I've got my head in my hands already.
No, sorry. So again, several ways. So I thought about the color blue, but then that brought me back to Zelda, and I didn't want to revisit Zelda because all I could think of when I thought of blue was Wind Waker and sailing around on the seas in the bluest game I've ever played, which I loved. A very easy Zelda. If anyone wants to get into the Zelda franchise, it's a great one to get into, but it's just hard to get hold of because it released on the GameCube, so you need like a GameCube to play it or an emulated version. A lot of the Wii U games are on Switch because no one bought Wii U's.
Oh, poor Wii U. It's such a great little
poor Wii U's. Sad.
Okay, so what is your something blue?
So then I came to something with blue in the title, and then I was like, Blue Protocol, which is a game I'm really looking forward to, which is releasing next year, an anime MMO, because I'm a big MMO fan, really. But then I thought, yeah, maybe not that either, because I can't really talk about it because it's not out and it's not released NDA. We can't really talk about it anyway. And then I thought, well, in the UK, when we say something blue, we usually mean something rude. And then that was where my head went. a bit of blue for the dads, as Peter K. A bit of blue for the dads, as Peter K. would say. But yeah, it makes me think of Mass Effect and the amount of times I played the game trying to have all of the sexual encounters with all of the crewmates in one run. Mass Effect 2 particularly. Yeah, in one run, sleep with every single crew member. Yeah.
Wow.
That's what I came back to. Yeah. I tried very hard to make sure we could get the win on that one, get the dub.
Get the dub. Oh no. I think if I ever referred to any form of sexual encounter as getting the dub, I think my partner would just walk out on me.
Yeah.
So speaking of my partner, Mass Effect is her favourite game. The trilogy are her favourite game. Mm-hmm. As a couple thing, we play our games together that we love, and it's her turn. We've done Mass Effect 1. We made a cool shepherd, a female shepherd with like a cool scar and purple hair and purple eyes. And,
cool. We
are near the end of Mass Effect 2 now. But she has played it 4 or 5 times before, and she wanted to really double down on the relationship with Liara.
Yep.
And not compromise it. So we've done everything. We've been checking the phone, making sure we don't do the wrong dialogue option.
Yeah. It's tough, right?
But I'm sat playing like Slay the Spire on my phone, and she's just mining planets.
Yeah. With the it's terrible. So I can't really remember the game too well now because I literally played it on release and haven't played it since. But I remember having a great time and trying to achieve my goal of trying to bed all of the crewmates. But yeah, great game, enjoyable.
It's so funny. So like, there are a lot of games now which wasn't a thing when we were kids. You couldn't have love interests in games. I mean, even the verb to romance is like a Victorian word that we've revived for gaming now. To
Hmm.
romance someone,
Hmm.
it didn't.
Yeah.
That didn't exist in the 80s and 90s.
No, no.
You just like chatted people up or whatever. Um, there are so many games where you do the mission, you come back to
Yeah.
the castle or the mansion or the spaceship or whatever, and then you go around, you talk to everyone. Where it's like
Yeah.
if you talk to someone enough and give them the things they want, they will reward you with sex.
I was going to say about Baldur's Gate because it's very similar in that way. You can romance everyone, and
Oh
it's
yeah,
But in that game, there's only one person that's kind of hard-ish. They're not even that hard to romance, to be fair. One of them just takes a long time, and the other one's just kind of you got to do a few things to get there. But pretty much everyone else will just throw it on a plate, like you're just being nice to them, saying, "Hey, how you doing?" and "I hope you're doing well," and "I care about you," or whatever. Next thing is they're like, "Would you like to sleep with me?" It's like
yeah.
it's just instantaneous. All of them want to get in your pants, the main character's pants. So I thought I'll leave that one out because it's way too easy. At least in Mass Effect, they make you work for it.
I think it's lucky that in the opening sequence of the game of Baldur's Gate 3, the Illithid ship, the Nautiloid,
Yeah.
manages to tap with its tentacles and teleport in the sexiest people in the entire city, all in the
So
same
true, right?
spot. Samantha knows that my character of choice for the romance option is Lae'zel. And she was like, "But that's like a snake lady." I was like, "I know, I don't know. It's the passion and the intensity."
She was the first person to say that we should copulate
Really?
instantly upon. Yeah, yeah. She's very aggressive when she wants you.
Oh man. So
And a good point is if you are trying to romance multiple people, you can usually getting away with doing that romance option early on because no one else has fallen in love with you yet. So you
oh, I
can do
see.
it and end it pretty quickly because she's very, very very quick, especially if you take her around with you in your team.
Yeah, that kind of phenomenon. I think we're going to see it more and more in games as games try and reflect a idealized version of real life. Um, Excellent choice for something blue. I think that was a very
Thank
cool
you, thank
topic.
you.
So now we are on to our final super secret special category that no one knows about, which is the game that you love so much. Why don't you just marry it then?
So, oh man, so this is like the love-hate relationship of being in marriage.
Oh no.
We've fallen out. We got back together again. It's been a long time. I can't remember the year it came out. Well, I'm going to say the name of the game, World of Warcraft.
World of
Um,
Warcraft, deep cut, man.
yeah.
Wow.
I have played that game since it released in vanilla. Back in the day, I was running around Westfall, getting killed by Murlocs back in the
Wow.
very early days. But yeah, I've played that game more than any other game in my life. I can't think of anything else I'm ever going to match that with because of just the amount of hours I put into it. I've done every single piece of like content.
Oh, all the
I've
DLCs and stuff, expansions.
every single thing. I've not played. I played the latest expansion, but I quit very soon after I finished the story of the expansion and I quit. It was
Right.
I think it was on at the end of about a 5-year stint where I was only playing World of Warcraft. I started streaming playing a lot of World of Warcraft, so
Oh,
that
okay.
was my very first few streams were World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy 14. But I've played way more World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've done all of the content from casual up to the highest end rating. I've had server firsts on, admittedly not an amazing server, but
Sure.
we've had the server first kills on certain raids, and Arthur's in particular was my sort of when I played it the most. I
Yeah.
used to book days off of work just so I could go and raid. I used to skip life things to play. I used to yeah, it was been everything. I've played it on off. So I played vanilla through the Burning Crusade, Lich King, and then into Cataclysm, and I sort of took a break around Cataclysm
Yeah.
um, after doing the first raid or nearly finishing the first raid because I was raiding that whole time. We were in a raiding guild from the time I started playing the game, and then I took a break. I never played through sort of Pandaria and Draenor and all that. I skipped those
Right.
and then came back again and then played for another like 5 plus. I don't even know. It's been out a long time, this game. Yeah. So I was playing that since the beginning, and like you say, it's probably one of those. So I had played another MMO beforehand called Dark Age of Camelot,
Okay.
which was pretty much the hype for World of Warcraft because everyone was playing that and enjoying it. It was an MMO. It didn't do everything great, but it was a fun game. More PvP focused than World of Warcraft.
Right,
But
sure.
everyone while playing that game was like, Blizzard's making one based on the Warcraft franchise. It's going to be huge. Like for the probably 2 years prior to launch, everyone was talking about World of Warcraft coming out and the hype for it. I'd never seen anything like it, especially being part of an online community already, playing a game that everyone enjoyed, and
Yeah.
everyone was just hyped for this thing coming out in like a year. And then when it did come out, I honestly, I don't think I touched another game for at least two or 3 years. I don't think I played anything else. It was completely all consuming, and as you say, it's this community, this multiplayer aspect. Like if you've never really been in a massively multiplayer online game, you don't realize how crazy that can be. Like being surrounded by people all of the time, like hundreds of people all the time, having the freedom like you would have in a real world, and putting that into a gameplay format. Really, there's something drawing about. Well, depending if how social you are, I suppose. But there's something that really like pulls you in with that. I mean, it's one of the best and the worst things about it, because you get all the arguments, you get all of the best moments, you get all of the funniest moments.
Yeah.
You get those sort of overcoming the hard things together. You do everything. But it really does. It really is the married to gaming game. If you're going to say any game is a married to gaming game, I can't think of anything more than a marriage than World of Warcraft, because you go through every emotion. Every emotion.
I think so. I played a bit of World of Warcraft, and it was, in my opinion, it's definitely bigger. You say, oh, they're basing it on the Warcraft franchise. It's definitely bigger than Warcraft. Maybe not technically bigger or whatever, but certainly more publicly aware or whatever. The experiences that I had in that, I later had reflected much later in my life when I got in Sea of Thieves, which is a much smaller game, far fewer people, a very, very different style of game. But I have, and still have, a group of friends now that I made, and we formed this bond, which was not always positive, and we had a lot of conflicts. We were like hammering through a storm with a boat full of like fragile glass, and I was piloting, other people were doing fighting or whatever, and I just drove into a rock, and I destroyed like 2 hours worth of work, and it was like real friendships on the line, real stuff. And it took us time and conversations and work and understanding and compromise to overcome it and remain friends and carry on. And World of Warcraft definitely has that.
100%. Yeah, I mean, I've you talking about falling outs and great moments together. I mean, people fall into relationships in that game because they spend so much time together. But I've been in pretty much everything in regard to that. I've had guilds that were scamming their players. I've had fallouts. Anytime a guild merge happens, they rarely work.
Right. Oh, okay.
I've
Power structures don't quite fit.
Yeah. I met friends that I've kept for the rest of my life through that game. Yeah, it's just a phenomenal multiplayer social experience. I can't think of anything else that even comes close to it. It hits all of the points of marriage pretty much.
Definitely. And like all good marriages, it takes you off into another world where everything is crazy and nothing makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's just our world that we're living in right now.
Yeah, right.
Nothing makes sense anymore.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that. That's a really good set of interpretations of our extremely loose rule set, and I can tell that you really have strong feelings about each of those games, which is really
yeah.
So I'm going to wrap it up there, and thank you once again for joining me. If anyone listening to this isn't already familiar with you, where can they find you?
Twitch is probably the best place. Twitch.tv//SlackJeff. On YouTube, I'm SlackJeff TV. And on Twitter, SlackJeff TV. You can find me in any of those places.
Do you have any shout outs you want to give to anyone before we finish, or are you all good?
No, I just wanted to say thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure being here, and I think you're doing an amazing job. Just keep it up. You're doing brilliantly.
Oh, thanks. That's really cool. Well, I want to say the same to you about your current playthrough of Sekiro Shadows Die Twice.
Yeah, it's pretty rough, but we're getting there. We're getting there.
I feel like because it's you, we should say goodbye, but like doing the crab.
Do a bit of a crab rave, yeah. We haven't got the. You're gonna have to put the crab rave music over the top.
And slice it.
Yeah.
All right, take it easy. See you later.